All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Give me an audio check. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay, and we'll get right into the charts. We're going to, I'll probably run for about 40 minutes or so, maybe 45 minutes. Today I've got somewhere I have to be here shortly, so can't go as long as normal. But thought I'd just kind of go through the charts. We'll see if we have any kind of trade setups or actionable trades for next week. We do have, we had the CPI stuff come out this week, the inflation report. CPI came out hot. The PPI, or the producer price index, came out, I think it came out like about even or as expected, maybe slightly under. So we'll see what we got going on. Kyle, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. We'll look at GDX. I can start out with that once I get into some of these charts. Then that's obviously gold miners. So just waiting for that audio check. Leave a comment, guys, if you can hear me okay. And then I don't want to just be talking and nobody can hear me. So all right. Once I get that audio check, I'll let you guys know where we're at with GDX. Okay, cool. GDX, I'm going to just get into it. All right, so what do we have? Well, all right, I'm looking at the daily chart. Brief negative divergence right there that I think I pointed out last week. So that was a divergent high. Boom, you got the pullback off that divergent high. But we basically fell pretty much to support. Now, this is the support line that I had on this one. It was violated. So that's something to kind of take note of, because here's the thing. I only have 1, 2 data points. I didn't really get a third reaction to verify this as a trend line. And that's something that I always look for. The more data points, the more reactions you have, the better the trend line. So on this one, I only had 2, but basically, we did gap up, and so I think that's probably a reaction. Just the fact that it looked like it was a little false breakdown, and then boom, gap up. So I still like this. I think it's a long going against what I'm seeing in these charts. To me, it looks like it's in an upward price channel, and we're gonna head higher. We're coming off of a larger divergent low, obviously right here. That was your last divergent low. And we had, well, not so much actually on the, when I actually look at the, I got to clean this chart up just to make sure I've got this right. Yeah, it's basically like an equal low. So we'll call that, if it's equal or higher, it's a divergent low. So there it is, upward price channel. Looks good to me, to be honest. Now, one thing that you'd want to look at, though, because I think it's the largest component, I mean, between Newmont and Barrick Gold, that's going to make up a big chunk of what that GDX is. So here's Newmont. I pointed this out in the private member group, and I'm just cleaning these up as I go along. But the private member group, I pointed out when we broke down right there, basically on this date, I said that looks like a breakdown and a sell signal. Seems like we're going to go lower. So we did continue lower, and I think we could honestly go maybe a little lower. We have, if I roll out, you can see all these little reactions here where it hit resistance. And then it was support basically right in there. Maybe my trend line's off. I could maybe roll it up like that and capture this data point right here. And then that would basically put that as a test of support. So again, you're in a zone of support, I would say. You could go a little lower, but in general, it does look like it's in a zone of support. This is more of a long down here than it is a short. Let's just put it that way. Even if my trend line was kind of down, down there, and maybe you want to go a little lower to test that trend line, we're only talking, it's about a 2% or so roughly downside, maybe, and it could back test for a while. You could kind of grind along the trend line. So you have to be willing to give it a little room for some losses, but it is a zone of support. So yeah. And then if I also clean this up, let me just kind of get rid of all this stuff. You'll see here that this reaction low right here, okay, that's basically where we hit. So again, I like it as a zone of support down here. I think it's a long divergence. It looks to be, still intact. This is your last bullish divergence was right here. See that? You have a high. This is price. You have a high. You have lower prices, but momentum was moving up. All right. And there's equal divergence there. So yeah, I think that looks good. And then let's see, Barrick Gold. Yeah, this one, nice clean trend line on that one, a better trend line. So there you go, support. On Thursday, this thing traded right down and hit that support line, and it wasn't a trend line until now, because we only had 2 data points. I had 1, 2. I didn't have a third, but there you go. There's your third. So Barrick's holding support, looks good. Nice impulsive bounce right off of that support. And yeah, you did have, this was a divergent high. You did get a pullback right to support. So we'll see. I would stick with these until we start breaking some of these supports. For now, watch Barrick, watch Newmont, GDX. That would be, those would be the areas I'd be focused on for gold and GDX. All right, so that's that one. I will roll up to the top, and we'll just get it. Oh, maybe you guys want triple Q's analysis. I know that one for me is a key one to watch. Okay, so triple Q's analysis in general. If I roll way out to the former highs, which are right there, all right, it's about 406. former it's your, not your former actual high, but your former closing high. It went a little bit higher intraday, but it closed basically right about that where I have that level. So I drew that out, and that's basically right here. We've been closing higher than that, but I did want to just kind of keep an eye on that to see if that is relevant. And then let's roll it down to the hourly. Well, actually, on this one, you really have to roll it from the weekly down to the hourly. That's critical. So here's the weekly chart. On the weekly, I've got negative divergence, all right? Now, again, that just tells me, all right, conditions are there for a pullback. It doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow or even next week, especially on this weekly chart. It just tells me that this move up, basically right here, all this move up above this former high being divergence is likely to fail, all right? And that's all that tells me on a weekly basis. So if it fails, it's going to take weeks and months basically to fail. But again, we want to look for the trades when we're diverging, not when the price action's already played out. You know, if it's down here, a lot of the bulls will be like, oh, you know, well, there's a lot of bulls will say, oh, it's buy the dip. You know, there's a lot of people that are programmed to just buy the dip, and they will buy the dip. They'll be talking buy the dip down here. But in general, we want to be positioned for the trade, making profit when we're moving down here versus noticing that there's, you know, that the trend has changed down there. But that comes with a certain level of risk, right? We have to take a trade before it's obvious to everyone. So there's the daily negative divergence on the weekly. Here's the daily. And on the daily, let's see here. I mean, you've got divergence basically starting to show up here. Not so much. Let me kind of clean that up. The divergence is there on the daily here. That's a divergent high because you can see the price made a higher high while momentum's moving lower. Momentum's starting to move lower. We could pop up, guys, and make a slightly higher high on the daily chart. All right. I would not completely, you know, bet against that. Let's just put it that way. I'm not guaranteeing that. It's, you know, it's not saying that I would bet for that. And again, to be long, you're going long against divergence, but divergence can continue. So I'm not saying we can't pop up and make a new high. If it does that anytime soon, it's just going to be another divergent high on the daily with a higher probability of failing. So I'll watch for that. If we pop up, then we'll look for opportunities for sell signals when it fails or if it fails. And then that's you know, that's where I want to be positioned. I want to be positioned if this is going to pop up and make a new high, suck in a bunch of bulls, everyone's foaming at the mouth bullish, then it fails. I want to be positioned right at that point of failure because likely you're going to get something like that, you know. Okay, so I want to be short that. I don't want to be long that. That's kind of how I look at it. So can go higher in the near term, though, so we'll keep an eye on that. And then if I look at the hourly, see the hourly on Friday and Thursday and Friday, we're just right in this level, about 408.70. We didn't have a close above that, but then they did really start to hold that to close out the week. So to me, you know, it's not a screaming short. I do have to say, you know, I think if you're short, it makes sense to maybe start to build a position, but it doesn't make sense to just load the boat short because Money Maven says, you know, it's time to short. What I'm saying is I think the upside is limited, although the upside could be a slightly higher high, all right, on the daily. Could be up here, all right, and that'd be about 413 or so. You know, somewhere right around there. So we'd look at, or 414. So from there, that's about 1% or so higher. All right, that's kind of the potential upside where I think that a reversal would be likely. But that reversal could start right here. So that's why you start building short positions over time. So what I said in my private group post was, I think it makes sense to short, but I'm going to build a position and add to it on confirmed downside. So I don't want to really add as we rally up because, you know, you could go higher. I want to add when I'm right. I want to add when I'm right on the trade when we start to confirm downside price action. So right now I'm not seeing it. Okay, so for me it's a very small starter short position, and we'll look for additional sell signals. All right. And then if I draw out like an hourly chart, I'd probably mark something like this. We don't have enough reactions to validate it, but we'll see. Maybe we get that on Monday. Maybe they rally it like that. I don't know. Or they break it. But what I would say is, let's say they do on the hourly chart hold this potential trend line. Then here's how I'd see it going. They hold it here, probably gaps down to like 408.74. Then they rally it up and make a new slightly higher high above that former high. That would be a divergent high with a high probability of failing. We'll look for the break of this trend line here, and that will be our sell signal. And so that's what I'll be looking for. And if you see that, you see an alert from me based on what I'm kind of saying, then that's how I see it playing out. And then from there, it's likely going to be a swing trade. Okay. That should take a couple weeks to play out, maybe longer, but again, every time if you have a big drop, you're still going to get rallies along the way. So all right, that's triple Qs. Someone says I need to set the adjustment for dividends. Yeah, I probably should do that. I can adjust that. Let me go back to GDX real quick. Some of these charts get flipped around, guys, because I'm always pointing stuff out. I'm hitting buttons and trying to clean up the charts. And this is back on GDX real quick, just to see if we have 3 distinct reactions. Yeah, I mean, if you adjust for dividends and I go like this, then yeah, I guess you're right. That's kind of. I mean, you did chop through it there intraday, but we'll say it held. So in general, again, held that support. It's very similar looking to Barrett Gold, and yeah, we're gonna use this as our trend line support for right now. It's basically at support. We're at the 200. I think maybe you get a little pullback, you could buy that. All right, you get a pullback to the trend line, you could buy that dip. Okay, that's that one. DocuSign and Snap. Okay. Jonathan Ventura wants me to look at crude. I will look at that because it is interesting to me. I do want to point that one out. I've been eyeballing that one. I've seen natural gas running. I'm not on, I don't have a trade on it right now. All right, DocuSign. Let me make sure I'm on log scale. Okay, cool. Always want to be on log scale for the most part. All right, so DocuSign, we'll just extend this out. Yeah, I think you go a little higher, to be honest. I've got, this is a really choppy chart, but I've got reactions up here. So I think we kind of rally up and maybe put in another tag of that trend line. I don't see any indication right now that it can't go higher. You're making a divergent high right now, but that could extend, right? You could go up a little more. So it's not a great trend line up here, to be honest. I mean, I've got just a couple data points, but yeah, nothing I want to short. I don't want to short this. So if I don't want to short it, then I typically view it as either neutral or bullish. So yeah, that's what I'd be looking at. A little higher there. And then Snap. This one has a history of just getting obliterated on earnings reports, or just big moves on earning reports. Lately, it's been getting obliterated, but so just keep an eye out for that. I mean, you can see here's an earnings report. They rallied it into earnings, and then it dropped. It opened up 32% down and closed 38% down by the time the day was over. Here's another one. That's a drop of 22%. There's another one, a big gap down. There's another one, a big gap down. So again, that's something to take note of. You've got earnings coming up. on the 24th. So towards the end of the month, I honestly I wouldn't hold it into earnings. That's just me. You know, it's kind of a gambling. It's kind of gambling, and maybe maybe you hit the jackpot, but so I don't really like that. We're gonna have to go with that. That's a better trend line to me. You got a lot more defined reactions there, and it looks like it was broken. You have negative divergence on the daily chart, and okay, so that's a divergent high. So it's kind of, I don't know, kind of floating sideways. I could see it just continuing to kind of float, maybe pop up, make new divergent highs, kind of continue to diverge into earnings. But I have a feeling that, one way to play it, if you want to gamble or take a higher risk trade, if it continues to diverge into earnings, let's just say it continues to kind of grind higher but while keeping the negative divergence, that's critical. And into earnings, I suspect it does a big gap down move on earnings. Maybe you want to play it with a small position. I wouldn't take a large position because, again, don't take a position that you're not willing, that you can't ride a 20%, 30% move against your position and live with yourself on it, because that's what this thing does. All right, so that's that one. CRM, Salesforce. All right, so Salesforce. I don't really have a clean trend line. I've got a couple data points here. 1, 2. It's the best I can do. 1, 2. So I can't say that's a valid trend line. We are starting to diverge. Very similar to the triple Qs. Any kind of tech stock is going to, you look at the triple Qs and usually tech stocks are going to kind of look the same. Divergent high. So I'd put a good probability that we're going to fail. You could mark out this trend line, but again, only 2 data points, 1, 2, so it's not anything I'd really trust. The best I can do on this one is you have to narrow it down to a smaller time frame, like the hourly, and then you can mark that out. Like, let me see. This thing just does not like to have clean trend lines. We'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say that we got 1, 2, 3. Now I know that kind of broke that trend line, but it's not impulsive, so it's close enough to say that it's sitting on trend line support. Okay, so 3 trend lines. To me, that looks like a bearish rising wedge. Small little wedge. We're at support though, so let's say they go like this, pop it, or gap down. A break of this trend line will likely set this thing in motion for lower prices. Now again, this is the hourly, so you got a gap to fill. You're probably gonna come down to there. That'd be a target on the hourly. That's a drop from where we're at right now, about 4%. And then on the daily, a big gap to fill, obviously. Down here, you got the, yeah, roughly right in there. Okay, so it's an okay short, but it's, again, I don't have anything to really trigger a sell signal on the daily chart. I only have a potential, I can trigger a sell signal on the hourly chart, but not on the daily. But I do have divergence on the daily, so maybe sometimes it can snowball. You trigger the sell signal on the hourly chart, and then the daily starts to play out. Tesla. Harry, I just did your CRM one, so I've got to kind of keep it to 1 pick per person. Okay. Adam, if there is time. What is Adam? kind of a junk stock, penny stock. I mean, it's $6. They kind of classify them anything under 5, but it's close enough to where it's kind of a junk stock. Okay, I'm going to go with that as my trend line. I've got 1, 2, nice distinct reaction there, bounced and then gapped up. 3, that's a trend line, and that's a false breakdown. Why is that a false breakdown? See the bullish divergence? People say these divergences don't matter. I get a lot of haters that basically troll me when the divergences build for a while. And because I don't say, hey, divergence is like, oh, we got a divergence, short everything, load the boat. That's not what I'm trying to tell you guys. I just say, okay, we have divergence. We have the conditions are ripe. All right. It's like if you're looking at for a tornado, you've got like conditions for a tornado. It doesn't mean you get a tornado. But there's bullish divergence. So that bullish divergence would tell me, hey, high probability of failing. This is likely a false breakdown / bear trap. And then there's the trap. They gap up and, and then the shorts are all covering. So that's why the bulls jump on board, the shorts cover, and you get that. So I would say watch that trend line. All right. That's support. And I don't see any indication that that's going to break as of right now. I wouldn't buy it here, but if it was down here, I'd be interested, depending on, as long as there wasn't divergence telling me that we're going to break soon. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, and so Aterma, covered that one for you guys. Numa, we got through that one. LLY, haven't really been interested in this one. We tried to get a trade going. This is what I got going on is back testing. So, here you can see the support. Lots of really distinct reactions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a break of trend and a back test. I think it can go higher and actually do the back test. We're continuing to diverge. So you can see I just extend my divergence. Okay, so I think that's it. I think we maybe get close or do that full back test. Keep the divergence. That would be important to make sure we keep that divergence back test, and then that ultimately would be an objective short. All right there. If you can hit that right at that trend line resistance with negative divergence on the back test, it's very objective as a short. And then from there, I think we start a downtrend. Okay, I think ultimately we come fill this gap, or at least get close to filling the gap. That would be the trade that I'd be interested in, is coming down, gap entry, probably a nice sizable bounce there, and gap fill. So I like that. It's just not quite there, but it's close. Walgreen boots. This one, were they buying something? Remember, I thought they were buying something. CVS maybe, or I don't know. Thought I heard something on that acquisition of something, or maybe they were being bought. Let me see what we got going on here. I don't like that as a trend line. I only have 2 data points. Obviously, it got rejected at the 200. Makes sense. Again, usually pullbacks to support at the 200 or rallies into resistance at the 200. At least get a gut check. And that's what this looks like. Bullish divergence here. See, this is where the trolls will really drill me. Because if I see something, I'll say, okay, divergent low, guys, and then it'll rally. It'll rally, and then comes back down. Divergent low, and this is where I get trolled a lot, because this is like a lot of time. September to a couple months. And if I talk about something for a couple months and it doesn't play out, people get impatient and think it's not going to work, which is not what I'm not saying, hey guys, I'm not teaching day trading. I'm not like, hey, something's going to rally today, let's make a bunch of money today. That's not, day trading's never really worked for me. But that's your bullish divergence, all right? So there it is. And then that's the rally from the bull. That would be the trade, you know. And so that trade's, I think, dead. I don't see anything, to be honest. I think you probably, maybe you run back up. But, you know, yeah. I don't know. It could go either way, to be honest. So I'm not gonna put an opinion out on that one. I'd just go neutral or move on. Love, so Southwest. Earnings coming up. I did have a decent trade on MGM. That's a kind of a leisure stock, and I travel / leisure, and I think this falls in the same category. I don't like that as a trend line, though. Let me see. Is there anything else I can? No, not really. Oh. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I'm trying to clean these charts up so I can make a trend line. Ooh. It's not, I guess I'm going to have to go with this as my trend line. I've got, you know, here's kind of reactions here. There's a couple right there. That's not, they didn't quite get there on that one. There's a reaction. I've got a couple. I've got a reaction here too. And you can see kind of the gap down and all that. And yeah, this broke through, but look at that. Broke through. And it had, let me just make sure. Not really, actually. Didn't really have negative divergence. I don't know. I don't have an opinion. Moving on. GDDY short setup. Let me look. GGDY. I don't even know what this GDDY. GoDaddy. Pretty parabolic move for sure. I'm going to have to say this is the trend line here on GoDaddy. And then you do have divergence right there on the daily. I think you could pop up and make a new high. So I don't see a sell signal, but yeah, I think there's a short setup there. So maybe a new high and then a break. I don't know. That's the way I'd be leaning. Which, I don't know, maybe that tells me Triple Q's wants to make a new high. Okay, let's see here. JP Morgan, yeah. That's a pretty nice little reversal, guys. See, that's exactly what I talked about in my video or live stream. I don't remember when I talked the last live stream, but I said, look, here's an uptrend line. And then I said, okay, it's broken the trend line, but it's not that impulsive, and we have earnings coming up. So here's what I think was going to happen. This is what I said in the last video. I was like, I could easily see it on earnings popping right up to resistance, which would be the trend line, and then rejecting. And there you go. So if you caught it, you know, that was exactly how I said it would play out. And, you know, you had to be on the spot when they reported the earnings to get the tag of resistance. But in general, it opened up and nothing but sellers. So negative divergence was forecasting that. So I think we probably started a downtrend, to be honest. Doesn't mean we can't maybe test this again, but that's a pretty clean rejection. You know, look at that red candle. That's the largest red candle. If I go back, I mean, it's even bigger than this one, because ultimately at some, you know, that's a drop of what, 4%. You go back and look at JP Morgan. I mean, yeah, that's a good size red candle. So I'm going to say that's a sell signal. And what I talked about was waiting for it to break the most recent reaction low, which I'm just going to mark it out as like right here. I just want to see, you know, if there's any dip buyers still here and it wants to kind of hold and kind of maybe build a top, then they're probably going to step in at that reaction low. So I want to see that, you know, I want to see that go. All right. And that would be my entry on that one. All right. C, earnings, Citibank. Yeah, the banks are, yeah, they got, let me look at this thing here. Yeah, see, same kind of thing. I mean, there we go. Same kind of thing as JP Morgan. I think we have a sell signal. It broke, back tested, and rejected. So that is two banks, and especially the JP Morgan one. Let's take a look at Visa. I know you guys aren't probably asking for it. This one hasn't quite broken yet. It's been back testing. Again, I want, you know, it looks like a good short. This definitely looks like a sell signal. It's another divergent high. Yeah, close enough for sure to say we still have divergence. I think we're just extending the divergence. But we, you know, at this point we need to look for like some sort of a definitive break. I don't know. It's definitely not the cleanest chart anymore. MA, MasterCard. I'm just going down this financial rabbit hole. Yeah, so same kind of looks like it's back testing, diverging. We just need some rejections, some big selling, you know, breakdowns. But JP Morgan might have started that, so we'll keep it. Maybe this is going to be a good trade for next week, these financials. Okay, let me just kind of scan through here. Neo. Rejected at the 200. It's got bullish divergence, so you're probably going to go put it, yeah, it's basically a divergent low, maybe a little lower. Pretty close. We'll see if that continues to confirm that bullish divergence, because that might be a buy if it puts in a new low. But again, you don't want to just buy a divergent low. We need to wait for a buy signal, which would be like a break of trendline support, resistance on the hourly. If I go down to like something like the hourly and I just mark like, I don't know, it's not the cleanest. I don't know. That I can't make that as a trend line, to be honest. It's just not that clean. Maybe that. That's a little better. So you need to see breaks of trendline resistance to trigger a buy signal when you have a divergent low. So that's what I'd be looking for on that one. SMG, that's our semiconductors. I like SOXX better for charting. Looks like a breakdown and a back test. So this one's actually, from my perspective, kind of on a sell signal. Yeah, it rallies into resistance. This looks like a short to me, to be honest. What I'd look for is Nvidia. I was looking at it a lot last week because the semis aren't going to break until this one breaks. It's basically the linchpin of the semiconductors and possibly the whole market. And I just don't see a short here. I mean, I see a short setup for sure. If I go to the daily, you know, you've been diverging for a while. I mean, look at that. It's just momentum is just, you know, and even like you can see if I zoom in, this is starting to turn down right there. the RSI. So you've got negative divergence has been building in this thing since it gapped up on the big earnings report that it had back in May or whatever. But it's just been diverging, and again, that's why divergence isn't a reason to short. You know, it's diverging, another divergent high right here. I need to see a sell signal, a break, and from my perspective, it's basically right here: support, support, support. They undercut it briefly, but it was there was no real divergence there, to be honest. And it wasn't impulsive. Again, I always say look for impulsive selling. You'll know it when you see it. It'll be a nice a definitive breakdown, not just a little, a slight breakdown. That to me looks like a false breakdown, and then sure enough, there's the short covering. So I think it's probably ripe to break down now. You've cleared out the shorts. We need to see this trend line break. And you've got good support right here, too. The buyers are definitely going to step in right there. I don't know if you guys can hear my daughter's upstairs wrestling with my dog, screaming. All right, so this is... Yeah, so support right there at 504.88. So that is support there, and you've got the uptrend line. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Okay. Crude. I did want to get to that, and I do have to get going. Crude futures still holding. It looks, yep, downtrend line. So this is what I'm looking at right now on the daily chart of the crude futures. Resistance, resistance. I should be adjusting the contracts. There's resistance. On Friday, they popped it up, but sold into it and closed it back at resistance. So again, watch this as a trend line. Okay. We do have, well, maybe. No, we actually don't really have bullish divergence. So I think we're probably going to come down and put in a new low. Maybe hit the support line at about 66.75. Where am I getting that from? Let me just double check. Yeah, that's good support right down in there. Okay. So here's the way I'd be leaning. Come down, hit support, bounce, breakout. All right. So that's what we'll be looking at. I think it's probably a good opportunity, a good buying opportunity to buy it down here at 67-ish. Higher risk because you're obviously not breaking resistance. You're buying at support. But, yeah, that's how I see crude playing out. Okay, one more, and then I have to get going, guys. So let me just scan. Sorry if I didn't get to you. I kind of just try to go down the list. I do cover the super chats, and then I just go down the list. So let me just scan for anything that looks interesting. Lift. I don't know. That lift is probably similar to triple Qs. I'm sure it's rallying. A firm could be interesting. Costco, cup and handle, maybe. All right, I'm gonna do a firm. I'm gonna do a firm, and I'm gonna do Costco. We'll start off with Costco. I know they're probably pretty popular stocks. This one's at an all-time high, is what the person said. Hey guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I assume you all have, but maybe people haven't subscribed, join up. I think that's the minimum you should be doing. And then obviously if you're not in the private member group, I think there's some value there. Again, it's not gonna, I'm putting out lots of trade ideas there. Take the ones you like, pass on the ones you don't. Many of them work, but they all don't work. So that's just how that goes. All right, so this thing to me, that looks parabolic. So that's kind of sketch. You do have divergent high. Yeah. So you're starting to build negative divergence. That's a divergent high on the RSI. Not really on the PPO. This is a divergent high on both. Not confirmed though. So, you know, you want to see, to confirm, this should start to turn down and you'll start to build divergence on the RSI. And then on the PPO, you know, you want to see this kind of put in a lower high like that to confirm. Okay, and then if you do that, then you'll have confirmed divergence, and that's likely going to fail. Can't really make a super clean trend line there, but I could easily see this. To confirm, this would need to come down and probably hit that trend line. So these will turn down, the price will turn down, and you'll start to confirm that divergence. Then from there, you might make another divergent high. I don't know. From there, I'd be looking at a break of this trend line, but it's not a valid trend line yet. I've got support. So I need a third data point. So this has a little work to do. Now this person says there's a cup and handle. I assume it's the weekly chart they're looking at. Cup and handle. Yeah, I don't see a cup and handle. I don't know what time frame. I can't get too bearish on it right yet, you know, right now for sure. I think there's probably a short setup coming, but it's not there yet. It's not, I don't see it. So I can't get too bearish on this thing. I don't see weekly divergence. I mean, you do have weekly divergence from way out here, but again, that's such a large time frame on the weekly that it's just so, it's so wide, it's really hard, you know, it's nothing I want to call out as a trade idea. So again, I'd look for the divergence starting to form up. I'd look for maybe a third reaction on this potential trend line. Then we'll have a short setup. Right now, I don't have it, so I can't get too bearish on that. And then the other one was a firm. Okay. So there's your divergence. There's your negative divergence. See that? The daily starting to drop in momentum, while basically the dumb money, the people that don't read charts, they just buy when things are going up and they sell when things are going down. All right, that's your bag holders. Broke trend line support, and you can see it broke with a gap down. I had this trend line out there, and there's a little gap. So that's impulsive. Gaps are always impulsive because it traps money. 5% drop. Doesn't look like much, but it's a 5% drop. This is logarithmic scaling, so the moves always don't look as big on the charts, but again, 5% is 5%. So this to me looks like it's on a sell signal. It's a sell the rip stock. So I'd want to sell rallies into resistance. Let me mark this out. There's resistance right now. 41.75, and support, probably the reaction lows. So I would short. I want to short this thing. I don't want to be long. I want to short up here, rallies into resistance, or breaks of support. So I want to short here, or I want to short if you get start to break that, and that's what I want to do. And it could go either way. I would assume it's probably going to break support and just continue lower. And then you've got your good. This is like a thin zone right here, how it just shot straight up. So I think if you start breaking this, you're probably heading straight down to 25.10. This is a good one, guys. I like this as a short. You did make higher highs here, so on momentum. So you don't really have you didn't have negative divergence extending. I would just say the divergence is basically right up in here. So yeah, I would say we're heading down to that target 25-ish, somewhere right in there. You get anywhere near there, I just take the money, because you got potential support. You got the 200-day, so I would just take the money and run. It's a big drop though. This drop is a drop of 40% just down there. So if I don't have this on my short list, I need to put it on there. That one looks good. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap up. Hopefully you guys have a good weekend. If you have Monday off, then, you know, enjoy the time with your family and friends, and I will catch you guys. I think the market might be closed on Monday. I actually didn't look into that, so I will look into that, and then I'll see you guys when the market's open next. All right?